The latest attempt by Republicans to portray President Obama's jobs plan in a negative light may be a bridge too far. The president took his message to Cincinnati, Ohio today in the shadow of a crumbling bridge that connects the home states of House Speaker John Boehner and Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell.
Behind us stands the Brent Spence Bridge. It's located on one of the busiest trucking routes in North America. It sees about 150,000 vehicles every single day. And it's in such poor condition that it's been labeled functionally obsolete. Think about that, functionally obsolete. That doesn't sound good, does it?
More than 26% of the nation's bridges are classified as either functionally obsolete or structurally deficient. Part of the president's American Jobs Act would fund construction projects to fortify bridges across the country. But that didn't stop Republicans from calling the president's trip a campaign publicity stunt. A memo from the Republican National Committee said, quote, Obama's stimulus rhetoric fails to span the gap to Realityville. Speaker Boehner dismissed the president's appearance in his own state, saying, now is not the time for the president to go into campaign mode. And Senator McConnell went to the Senate floor to criticize the president's job plan.
President Obama may think the best way to distract people from the challenges we face is to stand near a bridge in a swing state and pit one group of Americans against another and hope his critics look bad if they don't go along with him. But I don't think he's fooling anybody.
I mean, is it me or do they listen? President Obama made it abundantly clear today, bridges like this are not distractions from the challenges we face. They are the challenges we face. You can either remain part of the problem or become part of the solution.
Part of the reason I came here is because Mr. Boehner and Mr. McConnell, those are the two most powerful Republicans in government. They can either kill this jobs bill or they can help pass this jobs bill. And I know these men care about their states, they care about businesses, they care about workers here. I can't imagine that the Speaker wants to represent a state where nearly 1 in 4 bridges are classified as substandard. 1 in 4. I know that when Senator McConnell visited the closed bridge in Kentucky, he said that roads and bridges are not partisan in Washington. That's great. I know that Paul Ryan, the Republican in charge of the budget process, recently said that you can't deny that infrastructure does create jobs. That's what he said. Well, if that's the case, there's no reason for Republicans in Congress to stand in the way of more construction projects. There's no reason to stand in the way of more jobs. Mr. Boehner, Mr. McConnell, help us rebuild this bridge. Help us rebuild America. Help us put construction workers back to work. Pass this bill.
Joining me tonight is the mayor of Cincinnati, Ohio, Mark Mallory. Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing fine, sir. Thanks for joining us. You know, we heard the Republicans suggest that Mr. Obama was playing politics, that the president is coming down to their terrain to try to show them up, and it's just bad form. Do you think Cincinnati would benefit from the American Jobs Act, and is President Obama on to something here?
Well, we obviously would benefit in a number of ways. You know, the president came to Cincinnati to highlight the fact that his jobs bill has money in it for critical infrastructure improvements. The Brent Spence Bridge is a perfect example. This is a bridge that was built in 1963. It was designed to accommodate 80,000 cars a day. Right now, the bridge is accommodating about 170,000 cars a day. It was originally a 3-lane bridge. It's now a 4-lane bridge. It's way beyond its capacity, and it's going to take $2.4 billion to replace it. That's money that the city of Cincinnati certainly doesn't have. The city of Kentucky, the state of Kentucky doesn't have. So we're going to need federal assistance in order to get this project done, and the president's jobs bill provides money for this kind of project.
Well, do you think the president was, quote, playing politics? I mean, some of his allies said, finally, he steps up to the plate, he really knocks it out the park, and he tells these guys, the Republicans, look, you've been doing some horrible things here, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm going to stand up. It's unavoidably a big symbol that he goes to the state where the place where the bridge joins Boehner, if you will, with his Republican comrade there. Do you think it was playing too much to symbolic politics, or do you think it really got home to the American people?
Well, I think the point that the president is trying to make is he needs Congress to act. The American people need Congress to act. And if they want to call the effort to put Americans back to work and to improve critical infrastructure and to keep police officers and firefighters and teachers on the job, if they want to call that politics, I guess they should. This is a political process, and everybody needs to be clear. We have a president who has acted, who has put out a well-designed plan that will get America back to work, and we have a Congress that wants to play politics themselves and not act upon the president's plan. Listen, the evidence is clear. People need to go back to work. The numbers are terrible. The president recognizes that. He's not sitting around waiting for an election in order to put forth a plan. He's done that. The Republicans need to respond now, and the American people are waiting to see what happens.
Well, Mr. Mayor, Cincinnati has faced the possibility of laying off firefighters and police officers for the past 3 years. How have you avoided those layoffs, and what have you done in Cincinnati that could be a model for the rest of the nation?
Well, we were lucky enough that we had some cash reserves and some one-time money that we were able to use to avoid laying off police officers and firefighters. We haven't had any major cutbacks in service. We also have not had any tax increases, so we've been lucky in that respect. Now, I think we're out of tricks. I don't think we have that opportunity to do that one more time in this budget process, and that's why the President's American Jobs Act is so important, because it could get us through this last hurdle that we need to get through before the economy in Cincinnati turns around. We are seeing signs of light at the end of the tunnel, but we need that one additional opportunity to not lay off police officers and firefighters in order to really get through this process.
And look, like any mayor of any teeming city, you're out there on the pavement. What are you hearing from the people in Cincinnati about the Jobs Act? How are they responding to it?
You know, people are actually excited. They're saying that finally there's something that, one, they can understand. I mean, the Jobs Act is very clear. The buckets of money that the president has laid out resonate with people in the community. They are hurting. They know people who are out of work, or they're out of work themselves. And obviously the president is calling on Congress, just as I am, calling on Congress to take action. I mean, the president has laid out a plan that has money in it to upgrade schools, has money in it to extend unemployment benefits, has a huge amount of infrastructure improvement money, and that, of course, puts people to work right away. So there are a lot of elements to this that people understand. They know it will work. And, again, people are scratching their heads as to why Congress hasn't acted so far.
Cincinnati Mayor Mark Mallory, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Thank you.
We're joined now by Congresswoman Karen Bass of California. She's a member of the Congressional Black Caucus and a Democrat on the House Budget Committee. Good evening, Congresswoman.
Good evening. It's good to be with you this evening.
Thank you so much for coming on. Have you noticed any positive movement on the jobs bill in the House?
Well, I have to tell you I haven't. And, you know, that's why I believe that everybody needs to begin to put pressure on Congress. It's not about the president putting pressure. It's not about members of Congress from the Democratic side. Frankly, we all need to get involved and pressure Speaker Boehner to put the bills through committee and to put them up for a vote.
Well, you know, Congresswoman, one of the big beefs of the president's allies has been, well, he's not out there ahead of the narrative trying to determine how the story is told. Do you think the president can avoid having the narrative of the jobs bill taken away and manipulated as it happened during the health care debate?
Well, I absolutely think he can, because what he has put before Congress is an absolute package that has had a history of bipartisan support if you look at the different sections. And I think the mayor of Cincinnati did a great job in describing them. And so we need to get busy, and we need to say, put the bill up for a vote in its entirety. Don't pick and choose. I think the president going to Republican districts like he did today, having the speech before the bridge, is critical. He's out there on the front, and I think that there's work that all of us can do to participate in this process.
Well, you know, a lot of folk jumped the president's bones by saying, look, when you controlled the House and the Senate, you didn't get stuff passed. But what they didn't remember, they were blue dog Democrats and other conservative Democrats. What do you say about Democrats in Congress who aren't supporting the Jobs Act?
Well, first of all, it hasn't even come before Congress yet. But let me just talk about the last Congress. And you know that I wasn't there, Dr. Dyson. But we really need to remember the history because a heck of a lot was done in the 111th Congress. And so you want to talk about jobs. The stimulus package was absolutely jobs. At the time I was serving as Speaker in California. And if it wasn't for the money from the stimulus, we would have had even deeper cuts in education. We would have had to lay off more firefighters. And then talk about the Affordable Care Act. You know, jobs in the healthcare industry, it's one of the fastest growing industries. How are we going to provide medical service for 30 million people if it's not jobs? So I think we really need to remember what was done in the 111th Congress, and I think a great deal got passed when Democrats were in control of both houses.
Well, your California colleague, Maxine Waters, did some tough talking to the administration, saying, look, we've got to focus on African-American communities. 16.7% unemployment is unacceptable. You hosted a panel yesterday about African-Americans in the labor movement. How would the Jobs Act change the lives of middle-class workers?
Well, you know, one of the things we were talking about in the panel today is that when you attack the public sector, when you attack public employees, where do you think African Americans work? I mean, it took the civil rights movement to open up the public sector to African American workers, and we're there. And so when you're talking about laying off teachers, laying off firefighters, when you're talking about, you know, reducing postal service and eliminating Saturday service, you were talking about laying off African Americans. And so if you look at the American Jobs Act, there are specific provisions in that Jobs Act that will absolutely impact employment in African American communities. And so the job training, the summer jobs, the construction jobs. Now, once the jobs bill is passed and signed by the president, I'm going to be optimistic about that because I know we're all going to make it happen. Then it's on us in our communities to demand that those jobs come to our neighborhoods.
Sure. A bit of breaking news tonight, of course. You're expected to vote again on the Boehner bill to fund the government. What changed in that bill, and do you expect it to pass?
Well, you know what? It's a really good question because the only way it's going to pass is if the Republicans vote. So if Boehner gets his caucus together, which didn't happen yesterday, then maybe it will pass. So what I understand is different, and we're on call right now, waiting to go back for a vote. What I understand is different is they want an additional $100 million in cuts, and this is historic, and there's no precedent for it. We are talking about disaster funding for the hurricane, for the earthquake. A lot of the damage was actually done in Republican districts, and they don't want the funding to take place unless there are offset cuts, and that's never happened before. We've always had the values in our country that if there was an emergency, if there was a disaster, we took care of that. We didn't run around and look and say, what can we cut before we restore communities?
Yeah, well, we'll see if Boehner can herd those cats together of his Republican field and see if they can get anything passed. Congresswoman,
well, that's going to be the determining factor because I don't think there'll be many Democratic votes.
Okay, Congresswoman Karen Bass of California, thanks so much for your time tonight. Unless John Boehner and Eric Cantor can convince enough Republicans to vote for another spending bill, the federal government will shut down. Another vote is expected tonight, but as you heard from Representative Bass, Democrats are holding firm. MSNBC's Jonathan Alter is next with the latest. And Troy Davis was executed by the state of Georgia last night. But did he commit the crime he was convicted of? Why a rush to judgment may have led to a rush to execution.